My name is Gabriel Avăcăriței. I'm editor-in-chief with Energynomics. I'll start with some administrative issues for the moment. And I'll start by, first of all, saying thank you for being here. And then on the agenda, we will start with two individual presentations, so outside the panel. And then I will invite the speakers to join here at the table, and I will hand the microphone to Julian Popov for moderating the first session. But first of all, we will have the speeches from two ladies, Aurelia Domnițeanu and Teodora Georgieva. I don't see Mrs. Georgieva yet, so I will expect for her to be here. Okay, Gabi, thank you for... I say just a few words about Energynomics and about this event for the moment. Energynomics is a media agency established 10 years ago in Romania. We are based in Bucharest, and we are covering energy issues for 10 years now. This is the third time we are in Sofia, the second time in person. We started with an online event during the pandemics. And after having Julian with us in that first conference, we are happy now to meet each other here. Have a seat and I'll ask you to come here. Julian is one of the great supporters of our endeavor here in Bulgaria, and we are very thankful for having him as a friend. What is the idea with this regional approach series? We are organizing each year around 20 conferences in Romania and outside Romania. Regional approach is meant to help people from two countries, two neighboring countries, know each other and work together. And we had conference in Sofia, in Belgrade, in Budapest, and in Chisinau during the last 3 years. And I think that is very, very useful, especially at this moment when energy is very much an interconnected business, transnational, with issues that are much more complicated to be solved by one country alone. Take into consideration, I don't know, the ecosystem and the value chain for batteries or electric vehicles. It is highly improbable that one country will have the production of batteries and all the elements in the value chain, but most probably Romania maybe will host something, Bulgaria, other part of the chain, and so on. So interdependency is very eccentric, it is very powerful, and cooperation is very much needed. So I expect today to talk more about renewables and natural gas, or renewables or natural gas. I don't know exactly, but I'm very curious to find out what your opinions are. And also what we are trying to achieve today is to share opinions, to know people, and to debate. So we will have from each speaker 7 to 10 minutes of initial presentations, some ideas, some key messages prepared from home, and then hopefully some heated exchanges. So it is also in your power to intervene, to address questions, to make comments. That being said, okay, just one point I wanted to make. I have two questions that I will try to address to each of the speakers today and also to you in the audience, and I will repeat them. So during the conference, I will start by exposing them, presenting them at the moment. My question is, and I'm curious to find out more about how do you see the energy landscape in the neighboring country? If you are from Bulgaria, how do you see the Romanian energy landscape? And what are the challenges and obstacles? What are the opportunities for you to make business across border? I think that would be a very useful set of answers if we can get enough traction with this kind of approach. That being said, I invite Mrs. Aurelia Domnițeanu, Minister Counsellor with the Embassy of Romania to the Republic of Bulgaria, to start this conference with her speech. Aurelia, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank our host, organizers, Energynomics, and their partners for inviting us here today to a very important conference. First, when I received the invitation and I had a look on the Energynomics site, I saw a very interesting motto: "Energy goes both ways." I think you had in mind this regional approach and Romania and Bulgaria relation. Well, in my opinion, I would go even further and say that energy goes wherever we want, as long as we work together. That's the condition, to work together in order to make energy a useful tool for our economies and not a blackmail instrument. I was even more convinced of that 2 days ago when I attended to the signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding between Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovakia, and Azerbaijan for for promoting cooperation between the TSOs of the above-mentioned countries. I guess you already know that this is an initiative meant to ensure the energy security of those countries and to facilitate the flow of Azeri gas in Central and Southeastern Europe. I think this is the kind of cooperation that would help our countries to face the present challenges, the war in Ukraine, the need to decarbonize our economies and the Green Deals, and that makes the energy go wherever we want. Solidarity, cooperation, those are the terms that should and I think are the key, and I think both Romania and Bulgaria understand that. Romania is one of the least dependent countries in terms of energy imports from other sources, including Russia, and also it's very well placed in terms of energy mix and the possibility to open new production facilities. In a nutshell, talking about Romania's plans for the future, I may say that Romania intends to phase out coal in 2032, to use gas as a transition fuel. Hopefully in 2026 we will also use the gas from the Black Sea. To increase the number of nuclear capacities, both large reactors and SMRs, to increase the number of sources of renewable energy, both onshore, offshore, solar, wind, and to decarbonize the gas transmission system using hydrogen. That's shortly put. Also, Bulgaria has a lot of strengths in what concerns the energy sector, and I will only mention the fact that Bulgaria is a net exporter of electricity and has a good gas connection with its neighbors. So working together, the two countries, it's something natural. Actually, they are not working together only in the energy field. Romania and Bulgaria are very good partners, and maybe you know, this year in February, the two countries decided to raise the level of their relation to the level of strategic partnership. So this cooperation should and will continue, especially in the field of energy, both bilaterally and in regional, European and international context, in order to ensure energy security and to help the other EU member states, and not only EU member states, but also third countries, because we also look at the Republic of Moldova, at Ukraine, North Macedonia from Bulgaria, in order to help this country to reduce their dependency from Russian gas, mainly. So the energy map of the continent is being redrawn as we speak. So both Romania and Bulgaria have to have a say in this, and I think they do. But it's also equally important that Romanian and Bulgarian companies working in the energy sector to be involved in those projects. So that's where you have the floor, and I look forward to hear your opinion on that matter. Thank you very much, and success to this conference.
Thank you for the messages you delivered to us. You mentioned earlier on the strengths in the Romanian part or on the domains of interest, more specifically, nuclear, gas as a transition fuel, and renewables. And I thought about this fact that renewables seems to be the great winner of the moment. Probably because it is very strongly supported from Brussels. At the moment when gas, for example, has many enemies, many people who oppose natural gas in Brussels, in Europe, in various countries, nuclear also. Germany is the biggest example. And we should probably tackle these topics in the next few hours. We'll start with natural gas, and we'll start with Mrs. Teodora Georgieva, Executive Officer ICGB. Please, the floor is yours. I will just prepare the presentation for you to have also the support, the visual support. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Really appreciate it. So once again, thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure being invited here, and I also would like to say that Bulgaria-Romanian cooperation and regional cooperation is a must, especially in this special timing that we do have now with the war. I think that energy security, energy reliability, affordability, sustainability, these are the key messages that we should somehow not only hear, but they matters. And we should take care. So talking about IGB itself, so although the infrastructure is not a large-scale one, it happens to be a crucial one for exactly energy security and diversification of sources, and also energy independency in this not easy time. So it is connecting Southern Corridor. IGB is connected. So talking about 182 kilometers infrastructure, so which is 151 belongs to Bulgarian part, 31 to Greek part, and it is what is important that it is connected both by Southern Corridor coming from Caspian source, South Caucasus, TANAP, TEP, and also we are connected with DESFA system, which is the system of Greece. So there are different potentials. So the one from Southern Corridor is already started to be utilized by having a long-term contract to 1 BCM fully coming from this infrastructure from Azerbaijan. The potentials are for 3 BCM, and we do have something like 50% already fulfilled. And also the big potentials are LNG terminals, both in Greece and Turkey, which could really utilize, and not only utilize in this time, I could say this is a kind of main direction. It has been changed south to north, given the situation that has happened with Ukraine. So it enhances a lot the importance of a project like a real game changer. Being also, it is, we can say that talking about corridors, there is a vertical corridor that has been fully supported by you, a kind of, again, solidarity approach between Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary. Of course, it is, we can say that it can reach even to the Baumgarten, but it has been fully supported and signed last year as a reconfirmation of the support. Also, as I said, the LNG terminals, especially the one from Alexandroupolis, which is really with huge synergy with IGB. I don't want to talk so much about IGB because most of you know that it seems to be a kind of complex organization, which on the other hand is somehow it was vital for realization of such a project, because without having the support of both two governments and also different stakeholders, I don't think that we should have reached to the level that we are. Also, we made everything possible because it costs a bit of time to make a project which is really financials, the most competitive one, talking about smaller percentage of capital, high grants and support from EU and also EIB loan. So it all took time. because I started myself, joined myself in 2015, and it took time. Mainly, this was one of the reasons for a delay on the top of others, which we do have as obstacles. So we're talking about infrastructure with 2 gas metering stations, 1 in Komotini, 1 in Stara Zagora. We passed through all the certifications and ITO certification. We are currently independent ITO certifications from which has been approved last year, and also fully all the permits has been insured. And last year was a crucial year for us. I think that I mentioned this. So it was 1st of October last year. It was really crucial also as an event, and it was like a landmark for that for the project, which with the highly officials, and it is seen by itself that let's say the project is really of high importance. And by the way, it has been proven even a few months later that the pipe, although originally 50% fulfilled, let's say December and February, it has been more than 90% fulfilled, mainly driven by the opportunity that for the first time has popped up to boost and to transmit gas from ICGB to let's say through Trans-Balkan, which is let's say the pipeline which is from Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, mainly for Moldova, Ukrainian market. I know that also Romanian colleagues are very much helping Moldova, and it's not only a matter of it's a matter of security in these days. We are recently, afterwards, we have become very quickly a TSOC member. So I can say that it is rather very transparent, and we are putting all our efforts to be fully compliant and as quick as possible, and to be transparent, so everybody knows and could cross-check on a daily basis what's going on. Given the, let's say, the conference itself, I think that it's important to mention that it's okay. The future, we should think about futures. First is for the future. I meant expansion that we started to work on, but on the top of this, also to think about and to evaluate our system, how we can reshape and how we can switch at least to hydrogen, mostly at the beginning with the potential of blending. But we are going to assign quickly a project with the best companies which are benchmarked in this direction. So hydrogen definitely is something that we should take care of from now on. Although a new infrastructure, we should start really thinking immediately, because there is quite a synergy with TEP, and also this is the future. And what we shared even during the, let's say, the breakfast before, let's say countries like Azerbaijan are putting hydrogen and renewables as a first phase, even without putting this as a priority from EU. So we should take also give this as example, and every country should do their small steps together, because if we are not doing together, we cannot be ready together. So these are infrastructures, but not only infrastructures. We should take care about production and boosting the process of renewables, and that should be foreseen even from as early as possible, in order not to finally not to be prepared. And what matters here, just to repeat, is really integration, regional, which started to become much higher these days. Because it happens to be, these days, it happens to be much more clear that without integration among the countries, without there is no reliability, no security, no sustainability. So that's something that we should definitely, and we started to foresee even now, together with our colleagues. So here I mentioned already that we are transparent, and on a daily basis, this infrastructure, you can see what we are offering, how it has been, we are using two commercial platforms. So, I mean, you can always see what's going on a daily basis in our infrastructure, which is obligatory for everybody, but it's important that everybody follows as well. So this is the last one. So currently, as I mentioned, we are proud to say that from October till now, we are already transmitting more than around 900 million cubic meter gas, which is a kind of proof that infrastructures like ours matters, and it was done at the proper time. What we can say also that let's say the market of Bulgaria is about 3 BCM, but even lower due to what has happened. Mostly it diminished even by 20%. In this case, the Azeri gas that is coming from our infrastructure is even higher than 1/3 of the market. So it plays a role, not only in the energy mix, but also it plays a role to the benefit of the consumers, because we are talking about the lowest ever price, among the whole Europe. Talking about, let's say, the one from Azeri, let's say the other energy mix is not our deal, but that's good that we are also, it's like a cause, because we are also helping consumers to, let's say, not to have such a burden in these difficult times. What else is, I think that some of them I have already mentioned, but mostly, once again, to say that decarbonization is a must to be foreseen, and I'm repeating this because it is a kind of regional approach, and it would be good mostly to share know-how between each other. I understood that European Union right now is making efforts to boost and to structure regulation, because otherwise we cannot, in order our TSOs to follow under this umbrella. So this is also important to be mentioned. And the other one is, yes, we started to run to think about expansion. So the expansion is on two sides. One is DESFA has already planned in their plan to build compressor station in Komotini. On the other hand, we do have also some small investment to foresee. And what has been planned is that end of next year, I understood that 3 BCM compressor station will be ready by DESFA, and 5 BCM beginning of 2025. So this is a kind of date for ensuring the expansion, also for a targeted date for IGB. And okay, it's a pity that DESFA now is not ready to, we are not to offer firm flow for our shippers. So in fact, with this compressor station, it is going to be ensured. Meanwhile, with TEP, I could say that even earlier we might be ready with this expansion. So of course, the market will show, based on the market interest, we are ready to support, and we started thinking strategically even now for this expansion and also for decarbonization. So thank you very much for having the opportunity to share my thoughts, and let's be together is the message.
Thank you very much, and stay just a few more minutes with us. I have one question for you, and if you have any questions, please ask me. Please say a few more words about the role of the ICGB during the last winter in securing natural gas reserves in Bulgaria, in Romania especially, and maybe what do you think the gas connector Greece Bulgaria will do for the next winter? We were lucky last year. Most of us consider this. What about the next one and the role of ICGB? Thank you.
So the role of ICGB, so it's not independently only the role of ICGB, so it matters that it is existing, so giving opportunity. The other one is kind of measures that has been done by and boosted by European Union, like like putting some targets for the storage, which we did as a measure, but it shouldn't be the only one measure in order to secure also this winter. But for me, IGB was a crucial role because we can still continue to help countries like Moldova and Ukraine. That's why even 3 BCM might be a kind of low in this direction. And also for Romania, for example, what I heard is, okay, it's not heard, it has been announced, and we are also waiting for this, that there is a signed contract between Romania, Romgaz and Azerbaijan, also using this infrastructure for at least 1 year for 1 BCM. So this shows that we are going to, although Romania are much more, let's say, diversified and much more ready, we can also, let's say, support and supply Romania. The day before yesterday, I heard that Also, Hungary will sign a contract with Azerbaijan. So definitely, even independently from which route it is coming, I think that it's showing that it plays a good role. And the quantities which are mentioned for Romania, mostly some of them are also for Moldova, but nevertheless it shows that it is important, even the existing of this infrastructure, and together with some measures that also each government, EU, are pushing, I think that we can handle. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments or questions? If not, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I
lady.
really appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. It was a much expected interconnection, this one, and hopefully it's here. I will now invite the speakers from the first session of the day to take a seat here, and I will immediately give the floor to Julian for moderating this panel. A panel dedicated to the new energy landscape. We will talk probably about renewables, but I will also ask you to consider the role of natural gas. Julian? Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll see each other later.
As I discussed with each of the speakers, in initial intervention, 7 to 10 minutes. If you have a visual support ready, please come here in order to make it visible. And then maybe a conversation. So, Julian, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Gabriel, very much, and thank you for bringing us together. It's a slow process for Bulgaria and Romania to get together, but gradually, I'm sure in 2-3 years we'll fill very big rooms and realize how important it is to be together. So we will discuss the transition in the energy sector and the relationship between the two countries. And we have a very good lineup of speakers on that. I was thinking of making some introduction on the dynamics of the energy transition, but sitting there, I was looking at the building on the other side, and I can't resist to tell you a little story about that, because this building is very similar to what happened to the Bulgarian energy sector. I mean, you can look at it, and that's how it looks. This is a fantastic former theater, the Operetta Theater of Bulgaria. And I'm personally linked to that because my grandmother was the first woman playing in the orchestra there. She fell in love with my grandfather in the orchestra and went to the conductor and said, "You must put me in this orchestra because I have a plan." And and he said, "You can't, I mean, you're a woman." She said, "I don't care." So she joined in, introduced herself to my grandfather, and that's how I appeared here to sit in front of this building, which is absolutely ruined after being sort of privatized and fell in the hands of some, I don't know, national thug. And this is exactly what happened with half of the Bulgarian coal sector. Fortunately, the owner is now under kind of serious pressure, and he was tipped off about the investigation against him, and he's probably in Dubai. And the theater is called Renaissance, and the word Renaissance or Возрождение is the name of the nastiest pro-Russian Bulgarian nationalist party, which is now in parliament. So there are lots of parallels to think about. So I'll be discussing energy today and thinking about this story and hoping that the energy in the region will somehow avoid this a very kind of sad phase. So getting to less sentimental issues, we will look now first to the general outlook of the transition and the prices and the energy dynamics. And we are very, very lucky to have Evangelos Gazis with us, who is the regional director of Aurora. Aurora is a major energy analytical company that is doing fantastically well across the world, and we're very happy to have actually a regional office that is covering this region. So, Evangelos, you don't have your own microphone.
I don't, but also...
you will go there, so we will have the presentation.
I'll give you this one. Okay.
Thank you.
The presentation.
Yeah, good morning all, and many thanks Gabriel, many thanks Julian for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be in Sofia once more. My name is Evangelos Gazis. I lead our work, Aurora's work in Southeast Europe. And today I will be talking a little bit about the current state of the market, the power market more specifically, but also I will be providing an outlook for Bulgaria and Romania, focusing on renewables, commodities, but also storage, which is key going forward. A couple of words about Aurora before I start. So Aurora Energy Research is a leading global company on energy analytics, energy market analytics and advisory services. We operate using our 11 offices around the world now, mostly in Europe, but also in the United States and Australia. We cover the entire spectrum of energy markets, from mainly power, but also gas, hydrogen, flexibility, demand, electric vehicles, everything to do with energy. The ways we serve our clients are three, mostly subscription analytics. So these are regular reports that we provide for different markets, and we provide on a subscription basis. Software solutions, where we make our models available to our subscribers to use and do their own modeling and analysis. And advisory services, which are more bespoke services like transaction support and policy policy work that we do. At the bottom and at the core of whatever we do is our proprietary model, and that is what differentiates us from others. We have a lot of in-house capability when it comes to modeling. And in terms of coverage, we have now an office in Athens for the last year or so, and this is the Southeastern European region office. We have a team of 15 people now covering markets including Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Slovenia, Croatia, and Hungary. Okay, so this is the context for Aurora. Taking a look at where we are, how power prices have been in Romania and Bulgaria over the last few years. Obviously, 2020 was a very different year because of COVID-19. We saw the demand drop dramatically, and also the prices were much lower. But since then, we have seen a very dramatic increase in prices. In 21, prices went up by more or less 3 times the prices in 2020. And then in 22, we had even more demand, but also supply pressures that meant that we ended up with prices that were about 5 times what they used to be pre-COVID times. At the bottom, you can see the graphs with monthly prices. Different lines are different years. So the yellow one is 2020. You can see how prices peaked during the summer, but then with a milder winter and high storage, gas storage, we ended up at prices much lower than the peaks of the summer. But again, at much higher levels compared to 2020, 2019 prices. The main driver, as I hinted, is commodity prices. So gas, carbon are the main drivers for power prices, and we have seen here how these have evolved over the last couple of or few years, but also what is our view as Aurora going forward out to 2060. In this case, the black line is the historical, and the orange line is the central future outlook. So what we see at 2020 22 has been the peak, and this year will be much lower, but still much higher compared to 2019-2020. We do expect a further drop of prices over the next 3 to 4 years, and this is mainly driven by the fact that there will be more gas supply across Europe in terms of more LNG terminals becoming available, but also decreasing demand. Like electrification is one key driver, but yeah, overall that means that prices will reach a low by 26, 27 maybe. So this is our expectation. After that point, we expect a mild increase in prices, which is to do with the globalization of the gas market and the fact that demand in China, for example, and other Eastern Asian markets increases over time with the switch, lower coal production and more gas production for electricity. Carbon prices, second major driver, also quite high at the moment because of REPowerEU, new policies across Europe for decarbonization, which are expected to continue, of course, going into 2050, 2060. So we expect a strong growth of emissions trading prices. Yeah, these will be over 150 euros per ton by 2060, we expect. Now, looking at the capacity mix in Bulgaria and Romania, after that slide, one of the key characteristics is the exit of coal capacity. Traditionally, coal has been the main source of power, but we have seen a drop of coal generation because of prices, of increasing renewables and the cost of emissions. And we do expect an even higher, faster exit of coal plants in the next 10 to 15 years. We expect a complete phase out of coal by 2038, although there is no official kind of coal exit kind of timeline. We do expect, because of the economics, the pure economics, the sheer cost of producing power using coal will mean that most of the assets will be out of commission by 2038. Even those which refurbish, I mean, they will reach end of life by 2038. Similar picture in Romania. A little bit faster coal exit. So we do expect all assets to retire by 2030, 2032, which is also the official phase-out timeline set by the government. Very, very steep decline, which means that there is a high demand for new capacity. And part of that new capacity will be gas CCGTs. So we do expect strong growth in CCGT capacity across the Southeastern European region. I think we expect something like 1.5 gigawatts of new gas capacity in Bulgaria, another 2 in Romania, 2.5 in Greece maybe. So new plants will get online. A very important factor here is also the hydrogen, cost of hydrogen, how soon new plants can be refurbished and be able to use hydrogen going forward. But also, apart from gas, renewables are expected to play a very important role. Well, before we go into renewables, one additional component here is the demand. Demand is growing across the region, and this is mainly driven by growth more generally, but also electrification of different sectors. So heat, transport, but also hydrogen. So electrolyzers will be using electricity, and this is becoming more important when we look at the demand outlook. So overall in Bulgaria, we expect more than 12 terawatt hours to be added to the system from 25 to 2040, and about 10 terawatt hours in Romania at the same time frame, which also means that the peak demand will increase, which has a direct impact on how much capacity we need to have in the system. Okay, looking at renewables now, very strong growth, solar and wind. The top one is for Bulgaria. We expect more than 5 gigawatts to be added over the next 8 years, and another 9.3 gigawatts in Romania. This is mainly driven by solar. So when you look at the economics of solar, these are stronger. There is also a strong correlation with storage and a synergy rather than correlation, and that means that the ambitious plans that we have across the region for storage means that the economics of solar will also benefit. Lots of new solar, and much of that capacity will come through subsidies. So we have continued contracts for difference in Greece. In Romania, there is a new CFD that has been designed for a long time, and we expect it to go live soon. Lots of subsidized capacity, but also strong fundamental economics when we look at merchant assets. And this is what we are trying to visualize in this graph. So the gray bars are baseload prices. Of course, they are dropping over the next 15 years, driven by gas prices, as we saw, but still remaining at higher levels compared to the rest of Europe. And then we see the blue bars and the green bars, which are the capture prices for wind and solar, respectively. So you can see that there is a slight discount to baseload, which is to do with the fact that when wind generates, prices are lower because they push more expensive assets out of the merit order. More so when it comes to solar, because there is more correlation of production. So all solar generates at the same time. Is it me? Might be me. The important bit here is that, there is a strong discount. So you can see the green bars being much lower compared to baseload because of this cannibalization. But the important and optimistic side of things is that it remains higher than the diamonds. And the diamonds reflect the levelized cost of new capacity. So even in 2040, when you look at solar, the average capture price is higher than the average levelized cost when you discount the costs by 10% as a discount rate. So that means that new assets will still be economic even in 2040 with this strong cannibalization. Another important bit is the fact that prices become quite volatile. So with more renewables in the system, there are when you look at solar, there are diurnal patterns, so daily ups and downs of prices, which means that the average daily spread will increase, and that's the maximum minus minimum price instance in one day. The reason that is very important is to showcase the demand for flexible capacity to also balance the system, but also benefit from those price volatility. And batteries will be key in that. And we see that in Bulgaria and Romania, we expect collectively more than almost 3 gigawatts of new capacity, battery capacity by 2040. Final couple of slides. Talking about regional cooperation, I have a couple of slides to show the interconnection of the region. Both countries very well connected. Bulgaria has been connected to all of its neighbors and also planning additions to those interconnections. By the way, this is power interconnection. And new capacity is getting online to Greece and to Romania over the next couple of years. So Bulgaria historically has been a net electricity exporter. That said, we see very strong and ambitious plans from Greece and other places in terms of capacity deployment, like especially renewables. So that picture might change. But still a very strong interconnection, and that's not only for wholesale markets but also flexibility markets. That's quite important because going forward with more intermittency, the requirement for flexibility markets and systems that can provide cross-border flexibility will be important, and interconnections are key in that. Similar picture in Romania. Again, vast interconnection across the borders and many plans for further interconnections to Moldova, to Bulgaria, to Serbia, to Hungary. Different picture in terms of the net balance. So Romania has been a net importer of electricity, mainly importing power from Hungary and Serbia. But again, that might change. Romania has one of the most ambitious plans for deployment of renewables, which means that prices will drop and it might become an exporter in the next few years. So that's what I had in mind for presenting. I hope that has been useful.
Thank you very much. That's great. I mean, I have here two comments. One is, I mean, I see that quite a lot of the data comes from the NSPs. These are the National Energy and Climate Plans. I had a conversation with one senior political figure, actually, in Romania. And he was telling me that we're preparing now the energy strategy of Romania. And I said, well, you have a National Energy and Climate Plan. Is that not more or less the same? He said, no, Julian, you don't understand. The National Energy and Climate Plan is for Brussels. The energy strategy of Romania is for Romania. Nothing in common. And if you look at the Bulgarian National Energy and Climate Plan, I mean, I would say it's inadequate. I mean, it has to be updated, but the proposal for it update comes from the Bulgarian Energy Ministry, which produced something called Vision, which is more like a hallucination than vision. I mean, totally inadequate. So, I mean, my question here would be, how do you verify the relevance of this National Energy and Climate Plans?
It's a very good point. And by the way, although NECP is a source here, that doesn't mean that those outlooks are...
You don't NECP. Trust them?
No. I mean they inform our analysis, but we have our own view on how the markets will evolve based on the economics of assets. Yeah. So actually, there are 2 points. One is, policy. What is in law? What is planned to happen, but also what the financial mechanisms allow. So, for example, in Greece, for example, which is the most recent because they just updated the NECP, we now have a very ambitious NECP plan, which is in certain ways pessimistic, but in certain ways super optimistic, and we don't believe that it will happen because the supply chain will not allow it, but also the financial mechanisms, like not just the subsidies. I don't just mean subsidies, but also financial institutions will not be able to support this kind of growth in the next 5-10 years. So yes, NECP plays a role, it informs us, but then we have our own modeling and we say what is feasible within a certain time frame, what are the economics, like I showed the capture prices. So this is what informs whether a new asset is economic to deploy. And in many ways, like in Bulgaria and Romania, we are more optimistic than NECP. So, I mean, it's outdated anyway. I mean, it has been around for years, but in
more
other
optimistic
ways,
from renewable
in terms of renewable capacity. We see much higher deployment of wind and solar in both countries compared to the NECP. Not the same increase. So the latest NECP does see much higher deployment than what we expect. Especially storage is and offshore wind is completely unrealistic, we think. The Greek one.
The Greek one, I guess. And the second point is about gas. I mean, you see quite a lot of expansion of gas, but with the massive expansion of renewables, don't you think that, and also with the carbon price, which will bite into transport and buildings very soon, and as you showed in one of your slides, the carbon price will continue to grow. I mean, it will not disappear. Don't you see a change in growth of gas? I mean, gas being kind of squeezed out of baseload production and focusing much more on balancing when it comes to electricity.
Yeah, it is correct. I don't have the slide where I show the volumes of gas being used in the power sector, but yes, certainly. Although, as I said, we do expect this dramatic closure of coal in Bulgaria and Romania to be replaced by gas in some way. So there will be a few new CCGT plants across the region, which means that they will be generating more base load over the next 5 years. But as you say, going forward, it will be renewables that will be providing the base load. I mean, wind and offshore wind in the case of Greece. Gas will be more the flexible assets. They will continue to play a role. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they will be there into the 40s because gas will need to be providing this to supply during the evenings when solar is down. The average load factors of CCGTs will drop quite a lot. And the other point is hydrogen, and that might shift, but I mean, they will CCGTs will continue to play a role as the balancers of the system, but not with natural gas, with hydrogen. And we do expect this shift in the early 40s in most regions.
But before hydrogen, if you look now at the production today, yesterday, last week, what happens? The Bulgarian coal production operates on half of its capacity, less than half of its capacity. And the reason is the growth of solar. The gap is filled by hydro. And obviously, if you have a lot of solar in the day, then you save quite a lot of hydro capacity. So the dams are full, and then they can generate whenever is needed. So this is, and the whole of Southeast Europe has a lot of hydro. So will hydro not be sufficient to play the balancing role? And that obviously affects the role of gas. Will hydro not squeeze out gas?
I don't think so. I don't. As we saw in this slide, actually, demand will increase, and I don't think hydro will be sufficient to provide the balancing, especially to keep a reliability standard of the system. So, I mean, in an average year, maybe hydro can play this role, but systems need to be designed to withstand the extremes, right? So that means that gas capacity will need to be there, either through a capacity market or some way. In many instances, they will need to come in and ramp up because hydro will not be enough. And also, we don't see a lot of new hydro in the region. So,
no, but you see a lot of saved hydro during the day, because now, for instance, I haven't seen right now, but we can look, and probably at the moment in the system there is no hydro energy, or very little, because the sun is growing. So this capacity is saved in a way. So we won't use all the water to put it in a very simple way.
It's highly dependent on hydrology, and if you have a continuous few days of limited gaps, then they are fine. It's okay. You will have enough hydro. But if you have a long period of low wind or low solar, then it becomes a problem. And that's why you need to have reserve capacity, like CCGTs that might not have high load factors, but they need to be there ready to ramp up. And we've seen that even in countries with much higher penetration of renewables, like in the UK, for example.
Yeah, but there is no hydro there.
They don't have hydro, yes, but they put a lot of value in their CCGTs because of that reason. You do need that. But I see your point. And in many countries, actually, there are new hydro capacities. Like in Croatia, for example, there is new capacity. In Greece, there might be new pumped hydro, not the same, but sure, it helps. But at the same time, with increasing demand, I don't think it's going to be enough.
Okay. Well, it will be very interesting competition between the technologies. Thank you very much. We'll continue our discussion. Now we have Alex Gospodinov, who is the CEO of Hooracán Energy. Sounds very, very dramatic, or almost dangerous, but So, Alex.
I don't have any slides.
Okay, just close this.
Yeah, thank you for introduction. It does sound dramatic. We set it out as hooracán. It's more of a breeze so far, not exactly a hooracán, but I guess it's it's growing. So it's we've been in business just over a year, and our focus is on this region, on Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova. And when we looked at these countries, so we thought, what can we do in this region? Across the energy transition space, and we've selected a number of sectors. In Bulgaria and Romania, we are mostly active in offshore wind. A little bit of a fantasy today, but it's a long-term process, and we are in that process, on that journey. And in Moldova, we have a pipeline in development of onshore wind projects, about 200 megawatt. So it's an interesting market. I can cover it a little bit because I hear people are talking about Moldova here in relation to Romania. There is a lot of, I think, misconception about that particular market, and of course, it's very interdependent with Romania and with the rest of the region. Now, maybe talking a little bit about offshore wind. You would say, "Why are we crazy? Why are we looking at offshore wind already?" Here, Evangelos saying it doesn't make sense in Greece, and in Greece, offshore wind resource is more exciting than in Black Sea. So, I guess what your response will be to Black Sea too. But from our perspective, we've seen this movie before, right? In our regions, we know how offshore wind develops. In markets, in emerging markets, and we believe that there is potential for Black Sea today. If you look at offshore wind in Black Sea today, it's of course not competitive. You wouldn't go and do any project, finance any project today, because your LCOE, levelized cost of energy, will be north of 100 euro per megawatt hour. But this, what needs to be understood is these projects are very different to onshore renewables, and the timeline to develop them is much longer. When we talk about offshore wind, it typically takes, say, 8 to 10 years, and your final investment decision will be made 6 years from today if you start today. And what's really important to understand is direction of travel for the development of the sector, for the development of the technology, and what we think is happening in that sector. What is relevant to Black Sea is exactly that advancement in technology, especially floating foundations. Why it is important? Because Black Sea has very complicated bathymetry. It gets very deep quite quick, and even close to the shore, you have depth of say 40-60 meters. Which is today you can install fixed foundations, but they are expensive because you can't do monopiles. You have to install steel structured jacked foundations, which are expensive, and of course the price is driven very much by steel price, which is going up. Floating foundations will change dynamic in that sector quite substantially. We believe that by 2030, the cost of floating foundations will be lower than fixed foundations. So that's one driver, and then the second driver is the wind turbine technology themselves and efficiency of the wind turbines, which is increasing. And you can look at what has happened with onshore wind turbines when industry moved from Europe to places like India, to places like East Asia, where wind speeds are much lower. When manufacturers, they actually designed and produced different type of wind turbines, which is specifically tailored for lower wind speeds. And you can have very high efficiency in low wind speeds market. And this is a similar dynamic which we will see in offshore wind. We haven't seen it yet because most of the development today is in the markets where you have relatively high wind speeds. But if you look at East Asia, for example, today in Japan and South Korea, which are very active markets for offshore wind, in those markets, wind speeds are very similar to what you have here in Romania and Bulgaria. So what we believe is going to happen is a technology which will be designed for those markets will eventually be also employed in this region. And one other important factor is the development of countries and perception of risk in these countries, which we hope will change within next several years. Because today, of course, if I'm talking to potential investors about offshore wind or even about onshore renewables, the expectation around returns is very high, and of course, if we factor that expectation into a model, then the output of it is a very high price of energy. So what we believe is going to happen is the expected rate of return for investors will come down for markets in Romania and in Bulgaria, and eventually they will be similar to what we now see in say Central Europe, like Czech Republic or Poland. So these markets will be perceived less risky than what they are today, and that will essentially bring cost of energy from offshore wind down, and we believe it will be competitive with renewables onshore by 2030. Also, another important dynamic onshore, which will be happening at the same time, is people will be running out of good sites. Right, even today, if you look at both Bulgaria and Romania, you can see that the wind resource, the decent wind resource, is very much only in the eastern part of both countries, close to Black Sea, or in Romania also close to Moldova. First, there is very little grid capacity left in those regions, but even if grid is reinforced, eventually there will be no more land area available for those projects. And if you then look inland for wind, it doesn't look exciting at all, because the wind resource is very low. What it means, you have to go on a high elevation to get a better wind. And the problem with the high elevation is that about 30% of Romania and Bulgaria is designated as natural parks. And typically, if you looking at a hill, looking at a high elevation terrain, that's most likely will be an area under Natura 2000. So you can't really do anything there. What we've attempted to do in Bulgaria last year, and we parked it for now, is we've identified some sites which are inland, they're not in the eastern part of the country, where we can still get relatively good wind resource, but the land is municipal. Some of the land is designated as forest, even though there are no trees. And the problem with municipal land, of course, is that in order to get access to that land, you have to go through some sort of a tender or auction, so you cannot bilaterally sign a lease agreement. And before initiating the process, we went to potential investors, and we said, these are the projects, this is the economics, and these are the constraints, and investors didn't like it. Right, because one of the risks you have in Bulgaria is that in wind projects, right, specifically, often for you to convert land from, say, agricultural designation to the one suitable for construction, you have to go through a process which also includes CIA. Environmental impact assessment, and before you have that conversion of land, you cannot apply for grid connection, right? So the problem we then have is that there's a period of about 12 to 18 months until which you don't have any visibility on how likely you will be able to get grid connection. Of course, today you know what's available in the grid, but the problem is you can have a solar developer, you can have a battery storage developer who may start later than you and finish before you, right? So that's the risk, and then when we compounded that risk by the fact that you have to go through through that municipal land acquisition process and compounded by the risk of the market as well, it didn't sound particularly excited to investors who we are working with. So we parked it for now, but that's something still which we want to develop. So if there are any interested party, we can talk through the projects and what they are. But our focus today in this market is offshore wind. The challenge with offshore wind, of course, is it's highly challenged, and typically in our markets, it's what makes it easier that you have stakeholders on the federal level, on the government level. You don't need to talk to hundreds of individual landowners and so on. But what makes it different, what makes it challenging in this market, in this country, that the government keeps changing, right? And of course, it's very difficult to get people engaged in something which is long term, right? When they're themselves in the office for a few months, right? So it's been a challenge for us to get traction with the central government. So our approach and a similar approach in Romania is go bottom up and go through the process of attempting to permit different types of activities related to offshore wind project through local authorities, through maritime authorities, and so on. And then when regulation catches up, when there is an offshore wind law, and there is maybe an auction for a tariff for a seabed, then we will be there with substantially de-risked sites. Sites that we know can be permitted, sites that we've collected substantial information in terms of wind resource and so on. So that's the approach. That's the approach so far. We're quite optimistic that it will work. We have 3 sites, 3 areas which we've identified in Bulgaria. One site in Romania. Romania is a little bit more complicated because almost entire territory of territorial waters and exclusive economic zone in Romania is concessioned for oil and gas. And oil and gas is in Black Sea in Romania is more real than in Bulgaria, right? So there are active discoveries and new discoveries. So that's a real sector, and it's very important to have an understanding how a concessionaire for oil and gas block and a potential offshore wind developer will coexist. And for that, of course, you need the law, you need regulation, which is not in place today. So in Romania, the site that we've identified doesn't overlap with any concessions. In Bulgaria, I think we've got one site which overlaps with the concession, but that concession runs out in 2027. And it's been in place for more than 20 years. So our assumption is that if they haven't discovered anything in the past 20 years, presumably they won't discover any reserves in the next 3 years. So yeah, that's the approach. And then maybe a few words on Moldova. A lot of synergies with Romania. A lot of synergies with a wider region, including Bulgaria. There is a misconception about the market and about what what say Bulgaria, Romania, Greece can do to decouple Moldova from Russian gas. The problem there is not the source, not the fuel, but infrastructure, right? The electricity generating infrastructure. And the issue in Moldova is that you've got several power plants, existing thermal power plants, 3 small, I mean, 40, 50 megawatt gas-fired power plants in mainland, let's call it mainland Moldova, not on the west side of Dniester. And then the main power generating facility is located in Transnistria, right, which was occupied since 1992. So a lot of people forget about it. But it's there. It's not under control of Moldovan government. It's owned by a Russian company, and it operates on the Russian gas, right? And you cannot, whatever you do with the gas, whatever you do with electricity supplies, you cannot get rid of this thing, because it's in the middle. That power plant is in the middle of physical infrastructure. All high voltage lines go from it to the rest of Moldova, and in terms of gas pipeline as well. So it's gas goes through that facility. So today, what you have is the Russians is essentially subsidizing the gas that they sell to Moldova Gas. Moldova Gas also is you can call it a Russian-owned company, right? Again, not many people know, but it's 50% owned by Gazprom. So that company buys the gas. It then sells the gas passes the gas to that power plant in Transnistria. The gas is subsidized, and the cost is about $200 per cubic meter. So it's 3 times lower, right? I guess I'm not sure what's today's price, but it's much lower than the market price. And on the output is electricity, which is priced at about 67 euro per megawatt hour. So that's output of that plant, right? And now the problem for Moldova is twofold. One is this price, which of course is much lower than what Moldova can procure from outside. They are buying energy from Romania today, but that energy is from nuclear generated power, but priced at 92 euros per megawatt hour. And this is driven by regulation, as far as I know, that you cannot, Romania wasn't allowed to export power at a lower cost to Moldova. And before the war in Ukraine, they also buying power from Ukraine, hydropower priced at north of 70 euros. So it's going to be a very difficult task, right, for that country to change its energy system. And my point here, I guess, what I'm trying to say, it's not just about supply, fuel supply, right? It's about the whole network, the grid itself. There needs to be a lot of interconnection built between Romania and Moldova as well for electricity to flow effectively. And maybe one last point is in terms of the energy markets in that particular country. So there is no energy market today. So there are some conversations about Moldova being part of Opcom, Romanian market. So that may be something which I guess is relevant to some of you. So I'll stop there. If
just before that, one question. It seems that you're very much focused on the offshore wind. I mean, probably you haven't built offshore wind until now, but you might in the future. What is the complementarity between the generation of offshore wind in the Black Sea area with the onshore wind and the solar? I mean, will that because what we were discussing earlier is how the variable generation of renewables will create gaps that will have to be filled with something, hydro, gas. Where will offshore wind fit into that? Do you have studies? Or to put it more simply, does the offshore wind in the Black Sea blows at the same time or different time than the onshore wind or the shining of the sun?
Yeah, so I think the characteristic of wind resource is very similar in Bulgaria and Romania between offshore wind and onshore wind, because if you look at the wind map, again, that's peculiarity of Black Sea is that most of the wind is actually close to the shore, right? So typically, if you look at any other region in the world, if you look at offshore, the farther offshore you go, the windier it gets. It's not the case in Black Sea. So it's the same wind which you have on both sides of the shore. The difference, of course, is that your efficiency capacity factor of offshore wind is higher, right? In Black Sea is not that high comparing to, say, Northern Europe. It's about 50%. But if you're looking at onshore wind, so that capacity factor will be below 40, right? In this region. So what is the complementarity? I think it's not. I guess it's not just something which is completely different, right? To say onshore wind, for example, is just an additional source of energy. Potentially, it's a more competitive source of energy as well. It will come at scale, right? So again, there may be a narrative around hydrogen. I think it's very stretched, but who knows how hydrogen sector will develop as well. Maybe there will be potential to look at installing facilities to transfer that offshore wind energy into hydrogen. It may be relevant in this region, right? As you know, in the east of Bulgaria, in Devnya, there is a very large cluster, agricultural fertilizer cluster. So, and green ammonia is maybe a very relevant there. Now, if maybe another point here to add about scale, right? When you see a onshore wind project, say 100 megawatt onshore wind project, and we're talking about producing hydrogen, it often makes little sense, because the amount of hydrogen, the amount of green ammonia they can deliver out of that project is relatively small, and it will be hard to export it if there is no direct pipeline, a direct connection from that location, which most likely will make this project uneconomical. So that's why if you have a power plant which is 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt, 3 gigawatt, it makes completely different sense. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. And now we have Asen Georgiev, who is from the EWS segment of Eaton Electric. If you tell us about Eaton Electric, I imagine it's not just the company that provides electricity to Eaton College, but it's kind of a bit larger.
Здравейте от мен. Всъщност... Здравейте от мен. Всъщност ще презентирам на български. Не знам това доколко ще бъде проблем. Поне такава беше.
Follow the presentation in English now.
Okay. If you make it very short, then I will summarize.
Окей. Ще се опитам да е тогава възможно най-кратко. Както ме представиха, аз съм Асен Георгиев и съм част от екипа на Eaton в България. В следващите слайдове ще кажа малко повече и за компанията. Всеки ден по целия свят хората зависят от технологиите, транспорта, енергията, инфраструктурата, за да живеят и работят. Компанията ни е основана през 1911 година и ние работим за да окажем положително въздействие върху света, който като даваме на хората инструментите за ефективно използване на енергията, помагаме на компаниите да правят бизнес по-устойчиво и насърчаваме всеки служител на Eaton да мисли по различен начин за нашия бизнес и за това как да направим нещо добро за света. В Eaton сме посветени на подобряването на качеството на живот и околната среда с устойчиви технологии за управление на захранването, които са по-надежни, ефективни и безопасни. С бързия растеж на електрификацията и енергиен преход, воден от изменението на климата и експлозивен растеж в свързаността, ние сме в позиция да решим някои от важните въпроси в света на електричеството, хидравликата и механичното управление на енергията. Компанията, както казах, е създадена 1911 година. Тази година чества 100 години, откакто се листва на стоковата борса в Ню Йорк. За това какво представлява компанията, тя е наистина глобална компания, която развива бизнес в повече от 175 страни по света. Нашите глобални производствени възможности ни дават възможност да бързо да се ориентираме към спешните нужди на света и нарастващото търсене. Местните представителства за обслужване, съответно и поддръжка, наистина осигуряват бързата реакция, от която се нуждаят нашите клиенти по цял свят. В общи линии преосмисляме иновациите, като адаптираме цифровите технологии, за да оптимизираме и трансформираме нашите решения за управление на захранването, като нашата стратегия се основава на 4 стълба. Представяне на нови интелигентни решения за управление на захранването. Ние обединяваме иновациите в областта на свързаността и дизайна и киберсигурността с експертен опит в индустрията, за да представим софтуерни приложения и решения. Втория стълб е тясното ни сътрудничество с нашите клиенти и партньори, като използваме техния безценен опит в обединяване на правилните цифрови инструменти с нашите процеси. Третия стълб е използваме най-новите технологии в нашите фабрики с автоматизирано производство, като разширяваме цифровата свързаност между фабриките и мрежите за доставка. И на последно място повишаване на вътрешната производителност, като анализираме естеството на работа, която нашите служители извършват всеки ден и използваме различни дигитални приложения, за да подобрим този процес и да подобрим ефективността. Всички знаем, че енергийният преход е тук и се ускорява и ролята на електрическата индустрия в преминаването към енергийна система с нулеви въглеродни емисии е жизненно важна. По целия свят електроснабдителните компании отговарят на повишено търсене на електроенергия, водено от промяната в начина, по който се захранват сградите, транспорт и данните. Предвижда се до 2300 година да се използват 75 милиона зарядни устройства за електрически превозни средства. До 2050 делът на енергията, доставена на сградите, да се увеличи с 50%. И повече от това електричество да се генерира от децентрализирани източници, възобновяеми. Например, до 2050 слънчевата и вятърната енергия ще представляват 75% от добавеното глобално производство на енергия. В същото време цифровизацията на почти всеки аспект от ежедневието ни и бизнеса води не само до увеличаване на нуждата от електрическа енергия, но също така и променя начините, по който се управлява енергията. Чрез трансформиране на данните от всякакви уреди, оборудвани и процеси в реални решения, клиентите вече могат да постигнат нова ефективност, да увеличат времето за работа и да управляват своя енергиен отпечатък. Разбира се, с нарастването на търсенето нарастват и възможностите за нестабилност в мрежата, като за последните 2 десетилетия в Съединените щати са се увеличи до 67% големите прекъсвания на мрежата. Какво означават всички тези данни за нас? Енергийният преход променя начина, по който използваме електрическата енергия и електрическата енергия се променя, за да отговори на тази промяна. Новата енергийна система трябва да бъде свързана и динамично контролирана, за да се гарантира безопасност и устойчивост. С глобалното пренасочване към повече възобновяема енергия имаме възможност да преоткрием начина, по който работи нашата енергийна система, за да отключим ниско въглеродно енергийно бъдеще. Този енергиен процес се движи основно от прогресивната замяна на въглеродните горива с възобновяеми. Регулиране на чистия въздух и пряка и непряка електрификация на все повече приложения. По-разпределеното производство и електрификация увеличават двупосочните потоци на енергия и свързаното с това изискване за интелигентно управление на мощността и балансиране на мрежата, което е и основният проблем. Когато видите всичко като мрежа, ще може да си представите бъдеще, в което, например, батериите на електрически автомобил вкъщи ги използвате за резервно захранване, когато спре тока. Да, какво да направим? Дали имате още много слайдове? Ами, още един. Приключвам. Добре, окей. В същото време центровете за данни да се захранват с енергия, която се съхранява там на място и различните фабрики вместо да намаляват своите оперативни разходи, като връщат енергия към мрежата. Потенциалът за такава гъвкава интелигентна мощност е неограничен в общи линии. С няколко думи как изглежда тази нова концепция. По същество това е преминаване от еднопосочен поток на енергия от доставчика към потребителя към двупосочен. Тоест, в този случай потребителят вече е не само потребител, но и производител. Като не просто консумира енергия, но я произвежда, съхранява и предава обратно към мрежата. В общи линии това.
Благодаря ви. Thank you very much. So for the people who didn't understand, you followed the slides. It's a big company. Apparently 2/3 of the people are women or minorities. I mean, if it's American company, I think America has only minorities. I mean, that doesn't have majority there, but it's an interesting statistic. But that was very interesting view on the complexity of our energy transition, and if there are any questions now. I mean, заповядайте обратно, аз ще питам за въпроси. So if you have any questions to our speakers, we have another 6 minutes until the end of our session. If you don't have questions, I have about at least 20, but...
and I also have around 10 for myself. I will move with the microphone in the hall and I will give you the chance to address questions or comments. I saw one hand raised earlier. Please.
Thank you. My name is Cristian Atanasovic. I'm the representative of Kawasaki cogeneration system. So for the gentleman from Aurora, I have a question. I saw in your slides a sentence called heat electrification. Can you detail a little bit the meaning of heat electrification, please? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. By that we mean the deployment of heat pumps, mainly domestic heat pumps. So yeah, that's the main thing. So we have a view on how much of the heat will be decarbonized, and out of that, we take a view on how much of that would be electric heat pumps, mainly smaller units rather than
So
industrial.
electrifying heating is about households.
Mm-hmm. No industrial. I mean, this
not
could
just
be
household, any building.
any building, yes, but space heating. I mean, commercial, industrial space heating. There is a different component, which is industrial heat. We don't have a particular view on that. I mean, that goes into our main base demand.
Thank you.
I mean, this also goes into, I imagine, district heating, because heat pumps could be integrated into district heating company.
Yes, although I get.
Level of consumer will be integrated to the heat pumps?
Sorry?
At which level of consumers? So near to the building or to the substation or somewhere else?
So the ones that I showed, these are the distributed units, like in domestic buildings, not the district heating ones. This is part of the base demand that I show. Yeah.
So the expectation is that the consumer will have a much more deployment of heating pumps. I will go.
Constance?
Oh, please.
I actually have a follow-up question to that, because I was actually quite surprised by the level of increase of the power demand in Bulgaria, and I was wondering whether you're assuming an increase of total energy demand, and then basically some of that being covered by electrification, or are you very ambitious in terms of replacing, for example, firewood burning or district heating or other types of, household heating with heat pumps? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a combination, right? So just to remind yourselves of the slide, there was a gray part, which is the base demand, and this is mainly driven by GDP growth, so population growth, and every activity, like human activity, that is increased, like in terms of energy consumption. And then there are three smaller bits: heat, transportation, mainly electric vehicles, passenger vehicles, but also buses, trains, and then electrolyzers. So the base demand does not grow that much. Yes, here. So the base demand in Bulgaria, for example, goes from 37 in 25 to 41 in 2040. But the other bits increase quite a lot, because at the moment there is not a lot of electric heat or EVs or hydrogen. But we do expect about 4 to 5 terawatt hours from those sectors alone. Similarly in Romania, the base demand even drops, which is to do with efficiencies across the system. But the new components, mainly EVs, in the case of Romania, is what is adding to the demand.
Thank you.
There is a study that the National Agency for Sustainable Energy is doing every year. It's in Bulgaria. It's a very simple one, calculating which forms of heating are most expensive or cheaper, and what's the cost of heating for households. And their conclusion for several years now is that basically the cheapest form of heating in Bulgaria is air conditioning systems. They're very widely spread. So it's a very common thing to insulate your flat, even individual flats. That's a very strange Bulgarian phenomenon that you don't have it in Romania or anywhere in the world, but you have it here. But insulating the building modest insulation, not deep insulation, and then putting a normal air conditioning unit. And an air conditioning unit is basically a heat pump, not perfect heat pump, but a heat pump. And this is the cheapest form of heating in Bulgaria. And the only cheaper form is if you steal wood and burn it, which is also common.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from your side? I have one follow-up question for Mr. Georgiev. I will ask the question in English. I don't know exactly if you can. I'm curious on one of the four trends you present in the electrification, renewables, digitalization, and grid resilience. Which one do you see more active in Bulgaria? And if you are aware if the situation is different in Romania or in United States, for example. Out of these four segments, how do you see it in Bulgaria?
Can you repeat again before which
The four: electrification, renewables, digitalization, and grid resilience. The four trends you presented earlier.
at the moment biggest trend it's
Renewables.
Renewables, of course.
Okay.
And
And
there are a lot of projects, CV projects at the moment.
this is valid also for the industrial companies.
Yes, even if for industrial companies, many productions are building their own how to say power to go to decrease their bills for electricity.
I see. I think it is common with Romania because we talked earlier before coming here about this situation, which is kind of strange. Large industrial companies who need heat, who need hot water, they invest mainly or only in renewables, in solar panels, and not in cogeneration of high efficiency. When the biggest impact in reducing carbon footprint would be in this direction. And I was curious if something similar is happening here in Bulgaria or not. Okay.
Yeah, I guess
Please.
that's the case, but if there are any other views. But thank you very much. I mean, we finished on time, which is very
I will keep you 2 more minutes with my question, which is with my question that I presented earlier at the beginning. How do you see the Romanian energy landscape in terms of opportunity and obstacles? This is a question for the Bulgarian people, and I will turn the question around for the Romanian counterparts. Please, a few words on how do you see the Romanian history, for each of you, please. And Julian too.
And me. The opportunities in Romania. Okay.
I can just probably say from investment perspective what I see across the region happening. Investment which will essentially drive deployment of renewables and deployment of our technologies across energy transition. And what I see is that the sophisticated investors who started investing in these sectors at 10-15 years ago in Western Europe, they gradually move east. They moved to Poland, say 3-4 years ago. Now and last year they started moving to Romania. I think for Bulgaria that's where they'll go next, right? So for Bulgaria you can just observe what's happening in Romania, the dynamic there, the sectors of interest to different investors, and expect that crowd to come here in 2-3 years time.
Thank you.
Okay, I cannot say so much for Romanian markets, but what I see from my colleagues in Romania, it seems to be very similar market like Bulgarian one.
Thank you for the input.
I'm neither Bulgarian nor Romanian, so I can talk about both, I guess. So yeah, in both markets, I agree. The opportunities for investors are vast. I mean, as you say, many markets are getting saturated in continental, like in main Europe, mainland, and now they're coming to the southern and eastern parts of it. So we see that in Romania, in Bulgaria, in Greece. So in terms of the particular sectors that are expected to be the hottest, I think I hinted on one. storage. I think this is going to be big. I mean, we do see a lot of developments and new frameworks, regulatory policy frameworks to support deployment of flexible batteries across the region. Romania has already made some progress on that. Renewables, all renewables, solar especially. Also offshore wind, by the way. I made a comment on the Greek plan for offshore wind to be over-optimistic. I didn't say it doesn't make sense. I think the plan doesn't make sense. Offshore does make sense, and of course there will be, but the plan sees like 3 gigawatts by 2030, and that's what we think is unrealistic, because as you said, it takes 10 years to develop offshore wind, so the time scales are a little bit longer. But wind, solar in Romania and Bulgaria, with the synergies of batteries, this is the main, the most important over the short term. Longer term, I think hydrogen, by the way, but that's a different whole sector.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree with these views, but what I would add, not to repeat what has been said already, I'm not sure whether it's an immediate investment opportunity, but it's strategically and politically very important, is the upgrade of the grids and development of grids, not just on kind of medium scale, which is quite obvious, just cross-border connections and this, but also the mega projects. And this would include major development of interconnectivity with Ukraine, which has the best wind potential in the wider region here. Moldova, and also in the Black Sea and across Black Sea. I mean, these are the big super grid type of connectivity which must be developed. There is also some commercial interest in that. I think it would be good to start revisiting that projects like the Romania-Turkey submarine interconnector, which is just appearing like some kind of Loch Ness monster every 2-3 years and then goes under the water again. But this is something that could be also connected with the plan or concept of the grid that has been discussed across the Black Sea with Azerbaijan and the Caspian Sea and the offshore wind. I mean, we have to think in this kind of...
Thank you. Thank you all of the speakers for their part in this conference, and thank you, Julian, for moderating. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have a short break, I think 15 minutes. Okay, I'll expect you back here at 11:05. 5 minutes past 11 for the second part of the day. And just as a suggestion for this break and the conversation I anticipate, I think we left one subject a little bit underexposed. It was touched, but maybe we can discuss more now, one-to-one. What is the future role of gas in supporting this huge move to renewables, taking into consideration these intermittents and this? Maybe we can discuss more about it, because you talked earlier about Ukraine and wind for Ukraine, for example. But this begs for another CCGT, I think. I don't know. Thank you. Maybe we can discuss more now. 15 minutes break.